Hello. Better late than never. A lot of stuff going on today. We are so glad you are here. We're giving Dr. Vandergrift the week off, and we have an uh, outstanding guest tonight. We have the one, the only famous Dr. Karl Kapp, who is the chairman of the Institute of Instructional Technologies at Bloomsburg State University. And I thought that it was apropos to bring him on because the world of e learning is changing so rapidly as we get closer and closer to schools reopening or not. We need to speak to a Dr. Kopp to help us kind of separate what's going on and see how things are going to change and what are his predictions through his crystal ball. So, without further ado, Dr. Kopp, welcome to the show.
Cliff, thanks. It's great to be here. Really appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity.
it's great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you as well.
So,
it's been a while.
Dr.
Last
Kopp,
time I was up in New York. Now I can't travel there.
I know, because you were on the show here in the studio once before.
I was, yeah. I enjoyed it, yeah.
Well, hopefully at some point we'll have a vaccine and you'll be here.
Yes, hopefully.
Maybe we'll vaccinate you here live.
I don't know about that.
Do you think that it would it works right away or it takes a while for it to take effect?
I don't know. Well, if I did it there, I would hope it would work right away, but I think usually it takes a few days. I know when I got my shingle vaccine, it took a while to kick in.
Oh, okay.
And I was sick for a couple days.
We'll let you get up there.
So. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get started, Dr. Kopp, do me a favor, and I know a little bit about you because I know you now probably for about 15 years. Yeah. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
And also about some of your your pioneering in e-learning.
Yes. So my name's Karl Kapp. I'm a professor of instructional technology at Bloomsburg University in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. So it's near Scranton. Most people know where Scranton is because of the office. It's a graduate-only program where I teach, and I'm teaching there for over 20 years. And basically teach the design, development, and delivery of e-learning. So I've done courses in, a few years ago, did courses in Second Life, the virtual online environment. I've done courses for lynda.com, which is now LinkedIn Learning. I've done online courses I found a paper the other day from 2004 talking about how do you prepare to teach in an online, live, virtual environment. So I've been doing, the e-learning and the digital technology and digital education for, over 20 years. I've written a number of books, taught, thousands of students, and just excited to be, the coronavirus is kind of a bummer on so many different levels, so frustrating. But from a digital technology perspective, it's just kind of accelerated what was happening anyway. So it's really kind of interesting.
So you're no slouch. You're not new to this arena.
Right. No, unfortunately, I'm kind of old.
We still love you. So Dr. Kopp, what's that?
I said thank you. Yeah, thanks for still loving me. Even, will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
So anyway, Dr. Kopp, I have so many questions to ask you because you're in the thick of it. Not only are you thick of it because you teach in higher education and that you're a professor, but also the fact you are heavily entrenched in the world of e-learning. So the first thing I want to know is, when the pandemic first hit and we all went shelter in place, how did it affect you? How did it affect the university? How did it affect the students?
Yeah, so really interesting. In our program this spring, I was already teaching a course online. So I teach at the graduate school. So there's 3 courses. One of my courses, my assignment really is to run the institute. So that took place in a class. It's actually a lot more work than a class. Sometimes I think I'd be better off just teaching. But then I was teaching one course face-to-face with students. That was the capstone course of the program. And then another course was online. So what happened over spring break, the university announced that they would extend spring break 1 week, but no one was coming back to campus. So that was a pretty big shock to the students. So the first thing I did when I found that out is I reached out to my students that were face-to-face, and I said, look, I know this is kind of a shock for you, and this is kind of a shock for me, but we're going to move everything online. Here's the URL that you need. Here's the location that you need. Here's everything that you need to know. And on top of that, as you know, every semester we run a corporate advisory council. We have like 30 people come to campus, and they stay for 3 days, and they watch the students. They do their own presentations. Then they interview students. So we made a decision early on, mostly driven by the fact that the earlier we got out of the restaurant deal, we could reduce costs, and universities don't have that much money. So we moved that entire program, that entire conference online. So the students in the capstone course actually presented online to our corporate advisory council. The corporate advisory council actually presented back to the students online. And then students actually interviewed for internships and positions right online. So we literally just moved the whole conference right online. And fortunately, because the students were familiar with it, they got comfortable with it. Now, during that spring break time, though, I was called in to kind of help some of our faculty get up to speed on the technology. And that was a big lift. Some faculty member, we had people all the way from, hey, I'm not even sure how to use the Microsoft suite. Like, how do I use PowerPoint, or how do I use these tools? All the way to people that were, comfortably using, VR and things like that, and everything in the middle. I remember one professor, there's like, hey, could you help this professor with breakout rooms? I'm like, fine. She's in sign language. So I get online and I start talking, and she's not even responding. I'm like, can you hear me? Is my microphone working? Well, it turns out that no, she couldn't hear me. And when the interpreter came online, then I figured it out. I'm like, oh, okay. So imagine having to teach with the new technology that you're not familiar with, not even being able to, hear what's going on. You have to have pretty good video and that kind of stuff. So there's a whole range of capabilities that faculty had to bring to the table in order to make it as seamless for the students as possible. And there's big debates about whether it should be synchronous or asynchronous. My opinion is and was that we need to keep the same schedule and rhythm that the students had on campus virtually. I felt that it gave them a sense of normalcy. It gave them a sense of perspective, and kind of, I know when I get, kind of into doldrums or things go crazy, having scheduled things that you have to do at a certain time really kind of push you forward. So that was kind of the advice and kind of what I did to help the students. But, all students couldn't make it. I recorded the course so that they could make it when they could. So the online course, seamless, really transitioned. The course on campus, a little bit of friction, but we were able to get online and do it. And then we've decided as a faculty in our department that, we teach online learning, we teach online development. If we don't go online now, this is the time to do it, to stop. So we had been online before, but we still were also on campus, but we've decided to move all of our courses in our department online, leveraging the technology that's available to us to maximize the student experiences. So it's been a busy summer, getting everything ready for the fall, and you have to up the communications, you have to up the instructions, you have to make sure that everything works functionally properly. So there's been a lot of changes, but I think, knock on wood, that we're ready for what the fall throws at us. And I think part of the confusion is and was and still is, are we going back to campus face to face? Are we going online? Are we doing this high flex where we're part online, a part. And I think just making a decision early makes it easier for the faculty and the student. They might not like it, but they know what's happening. There's comfort in certainty. I think this uncertainty just causes a lot of discomfort, ill feelings, anxiety. So I think once a decision's made, you just move forward and don't look back.
Right. So your little soliloquy that you just went through
Yes.
has prompted so many questions in my mind. The first thing
Right.
is, you're an anomaly. Why are you an anomaly? Because look what you guys do for a living. You guys are like, you're the mecca of what people need to look for to set the example for everybody else on what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
While
we're
you
very
did a great
fortunate.
job, you're still grappling.
Right. Yeah,
So, but
it's not an easy
you
task. I mean, to take a course that's designed for face to face and put it online with basically zero notice, very difficult.
right. But now you've had some experience at it with quickly adapting, and now you're able to make plans. So, are you setting the example for the entire university?
We're trying to. Our department has, we have a group called Teaching and Learning Enhancement, the TAIL Center, that's led by a woman named Dr. Lisa Stahlbaumer, who is brilliant at this, and she's taken the lead, but because that's kind of her assignment, and then we're helping. So we have helped faculty understand the technology. We have helped faculty understand the pedagogy. We've helped faculty kind of move with some ideas on how to move online on what they want to do. But most of those faculty didn't sign up for. A colleague of mine said before the pandemic, 24% of all faculty members across the United States had taught online. Since the pandemic hit, 100% have taught online. So in the past 5 months, huge change. And some of the online is awesome. Some of the faculty have made the transition easily, and some never signed up to teach online, never wanted to teach online. Years ago, I had a professor tell me, Karl, online learning is great. You can teach anything online except accounting. And of course, he taught accounting. Well, accounting is a great subject.
You got a lot of those, I bet.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right.
it's definitely a transition for faculty members.
One of the things that I talk about is you there are things that you lose in face-to-face learning, and we can't get rid of face-to-face learning.
No.
But there are things we can do in e-learning that you can't do in face-to-face learning.
Right.
You agree?
Definitely. I absolutely agree. Yeah. One of the things I've been doing is creating little explainer videos to help with some of the more obscure concepts in my classes. And students can watch it over and over and over again. They can pause it. They can ask me questions about it. And then I can get back to them and say, hey, go to minute 501 of the video. And so there are definitely advantages to both. So, but there's some things I can do in an e-learning environment that I couldn't dream of doing in the classroom, and it's very helpful.
How are you incorporating live streaming into your videos, in your teaching?
Yeah. So one of the things that so our classes are 6 to 9 o'clock at night. So the concept is that our students can work or do whatever they need to during the day, and then come to class in the evenings. And one of the hallmarks of our program is that you have a faculty member there live. So we just last semester implemented an asynchronous course, but all of our other courses are synchronous. So I'm on at 6 o'clock, you're on at 6 o'clock, I'm live streaming my content. You can ask me a question in the flow. You can interrupt me during my discussion. I have the students, I break them into breakout rooms and have them interact with each other. I can look at the chat. I was doing something the other day, and again, I've been doing this for 20 years, and we were rehearsing for a conference webinar that I was doing, and things were coming up in the chat, and I was reading the chat and responding to the questions that were in the chat. And somebody said, "Well, wow, you're pretty comfortable reading the chat, talking and presenting, and with this whole environment." I said, "It's because I'm used to it for 20 plus years." But
Right.
and so we can do that in my live sessions. Faculty members who aren't used to that, there's a lot of what are called live stream producers, and so that's a person that handles all the technology for an organization. So if you're an instructor or trainer not familiar with that, you can hire someone to help you with that technology. Unfortunately, at the university, we don't have that luxury, so we kind of have to, kind of work in that. But so I've been trying to use live streaming to connect with the students. I opened class several times saying, "Hey, how's everybody feeling? I know this is rough," and spending some time really talking about the situation that the students are in, what they need to do to be successful in these crazy times, and just being someone who listens to them rather than just kind of a one-way dump of content. And I think live streaming
Right.
allows you to do that exceptionally well, because you're able to see expressions very not dissimilar to a classroom. And if you set it up, the view correctly, you can see everybody. You can see if somebody's looking the other way and talking to somebody off screen for too long. You can see if they're kind of like bored. You can even see if somebody's reading text on the screen. So I can say, "Hey, Cliff," and I can see that you're reading. I say, "Hey, Cliff, what do you think about this?" Right? And I can draw the students back into the instruction. So I like being there live because it's the next best thing to standing in front of the classroom, because I have that connection with the students. And the other cool thing about live streaming is, and I've done this when we switched online. I said to the students, I said, "Turn on your camera, and I want to see the environment you're in. Like, give me a little tour of where your learning is going to occur." And that did a couple things. One, it gave me a little bit about their personality. It also let me know, like, oh, they're in the kitchen, so they might be a little distracted. Oh, this person has their own room, so okay, they're going to be good. This person, it's very dark in there, so they might fall asleep. So it just gives you a sense, and then other students can say, "Hey, is that a Batman, comic book in the back of your on the wall
Right.
there?" And then talk about, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love Batman too. Not me, I like Marvel." So now the students can get to know each other as if it was the regular chat in class. And one of the things
Right.
that I would like to do is open the live session early and have people come in and talk and have those kind of conversations, because that's like it is in a real, that's like it is in a physical classroom. I don't want to say real, but that's like it is in a physical classroom. And that live streaming gives you that sense of, hey, you're coming and hanging out before class, and then hanging out after class, and then in class. It's almost better because you can see the personality of the learners by the environment that they're in.
That is so cool, because those are some of the things that you can't do when you're live in a classroom. You can't see
Right.
the kid's bedroom, what posters are hanging on the wall. You can't see if the kid is looking on his phone, because it's easier for him to hide it in the classroom as he's sitting behind somebody else. But when you're online and you see them from their camera standpoint, you can see everything.
You really can. And even if they don't know that you're looking at them, right, you can see,
Right.
and they don't know where you're looking, right, because you're looking at all of them in like a gallery view or a big view or something like that. So it's really nice to be able to do that. And once the students understand that, like, I'll tell the students, "Hey, we're going to do a tour of your room. So if there's anything inappropriate, anything you don't want me to see, cover it up, take it down, whatever. Understand that from time to time." And I said, the problem is you're not going to think about it, and then you're going to turn on the camera for some reason, and then nobody's going to be happy. So just get rid of it now, so that and so you set some ground rules. I deal with graduate students. They pretty much understand what's happening. They have a different maturity level, which is helpful. Although I had a colleague today tell me, she's like, I teach this class with graduates and undergraduates, and three of the grad students wanted extensions on projects, and none of the undergraduates needed extensions. So she's like, what's going on? So, I don't want to paint a broad brush. If you think about undergraduates, they're 18, 19, 20 years. I mean, they have a sense of maturity. And I think our job as faculty members, or my job as a faculty member, is to respect that maturity, and to be honest with them about, what's happening, what the economy's like, what the learning situation. All these people are saying, take an extra year. Now's the time to take a gap year. I don't agree with that at all. There's no time to travel. There's no time to explore yourself. If you don't have, again, I think if you don't have a regimented schedule, things can go awry. So I think learn as much as you can now. There's never been a better time to learn online. There's never
Yeah.
been a better time to experience it online, to interact live. So go ahead and do that. Don't waste your time not doing anything.
I don't know if this question is clear or not, but when you're live streaming in a class, is it easier to see patterns of specific things, thought processes, ideas, agreement, etc.?
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple things about that. So one is another thing that you can do with the live streaming that you can't do in the classroom is you get both visual cues of reaction, but you also get chat. So a lot of times the chat that's happening is almost a stream of conscious among students. So I can't see into your head when you're sitting there commenting, but if I see 3 or 4 students say similar or the same thing in the chat, I can go, okay, maybe they didn't get what I said. And you can also, if you see like a broader spectrum, you can see if people are, again, like, okay, yeah, they're looking down because they don't understand or if you ask a question, they look away. Okay, so nobody knows that question or nobody knows what's going on. So I need to rephrase that question or say it differently. So it really gives me 2 tools, which is one, the visual tool, but 2, the chat tool. And the other nice thing I like about the chat is that, in a classroom, if there's a back conversation going on about something I said, maybe a paragraph ago or a minute ago, it disturbs the whole class. But in the chat, it doesn't disturb the whole class. You can decide to look at it or not. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the chat going on as I'm live streaming my content is as valuable, or in some cases more valuable, than what I might be saying, because these are students teaching each other or correcting each other or
Right.
clarifying each other, which
Right.
is really a nice aspect of live streaming that you, again, don't get in a traditional physical classroom environment.
You brought up so many good points. Again, I have tons of questions. And the first one is more of a state. This first one's really more of a statement. And that
Mm-hmm.
is when the kids are in the class, either they're talking a little bit and you can't get that information, or they have that conversation after class. Well, when you're live streaming, that conversation occurs during the class. So now you get so much more information that helps you adjust your teaching style or content. Is that correct?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it really does. I can see if they're understanding it. What did he say? I don't understand what he means, And then either another, and the other thing does it. I think the live streaming and the conversations in class allow for more teaching, and not by me, but by the peers. And the cool thing about that in terms of the peers is that the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if somebody says, well, I think he meant this, or he was really saying this, I can glance and see if they're right. If they're right, I don't do anything. I just let it go. If I need to clarify, then I'll jump in the chat and clarify. And then what I'll also do for live chat is I'll ask the students a question, and then I'll scroll back through the conversation. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that didn't make sense? Is there anything that they seem to be confused about? So it gives me another tool to read the class and to understand where they are as I conduct the instruction.
Right. One of the biggest components of the university experience, college experience, is the socialization that takes place outside the classroom. Okay, we lost that. That's sad. That was a big deal. But do you find that in the classroom now, there's more of a community that's building and that socialization occurs in the classroom? And how?
Yeah, so a couple things. So this semester, um, I think what happened was being online live really gave those students a sense of community because all of a sudden they were isolated. They couldn't leave their house. They couldn't go to work. They had to work from home. And when you're online working, there's a different level of intensity than when you're in an online class. So the class, I try to do the class as really kind of a comfortable, friendly place. So I got on early so people could do early. When we took breaks, I said I'm going to leave I'm going to leave everything up. If you want to have a chat amongst yourselves, go ahead and have the chat, have a discussion. I was doing a conference. We were doing a live conference presentation. This isn't necessarily students, but these are adults. And after the live recording, like 6 of us stuck around and had another hour and a half chat. And afterwards, I got an email message from them saying, "Oh my gosh, I haven't had that level of conversation literally in years." So it gave people an opportunity to have comfortable conversations about kind of what they're doing from a live perspective. And then another really interesting thing I got involved with is there's a group of learning and development folks who have a thing called like basically a makers fair every Wednesday night. So Wednesday night you get online and you get like your Lego. It started out as Lego project, or one person was knitting, one person was building crafts, and we just talked as we did the crafts. And it was interesting to me how little we talked about the crafts and how much we talked about the other kind of things. So I think creating those kind of spaces, having club meetings for students that are laid back, having maker sessions for students that just want to chat or just want to talk. I mean, it can be one thing about, I joked before about being old, but the one thing about being old is it gives you a sense of perspective. So this is crappy and it's not good, but it's not the end of the world, right? So, we've lived through 9/11, lived through the stock market ascent in 2000, and then the descent, and then the same thing back again. And, it just gives you perspective. And sometimes younger students don't have that perspective. So just being someone who says, hey, the United States, the world's been through some pretty crappy stuff. I've actually lived through some of it. And you know what? I'm still here. You're still going to be here. So let's talk about the anxiety, but work out a way forward. And I think that adds that social aspect that, you might not. And again, because there still is a sense of distance, I think people are actually, in some cases, more open to talking about, issues because there is that kind of a distance, or because, they don't want to do the video. They just want to get on and say, hey, Dr. Kapp, I don't want to turn on my video, but I want to talk to you about such and such and such and such. Then that gives them that a little bit of sense of distance, but still allows them to have that intimate conversation. And that could be really helpful for the mental state of the student. I think as faculty members, we're not just responsible for the cognitive domain, but we're responsible for the affective domain as well.
Yeah. And, we are all feeling so isolated. This is a way for us to feel more connected again. And even though we're not on campus, we can't go to a bar and have a beer, or, we can't go do an activity, play frisbee on a quad. It's still a way for us to stay connected.
It
Which
really
brings me
is.
to my next question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I swam in college, and we've had 2 college swim reunions. I never went back to any of my swim reunions, but online we've had 2 college swim reunions, and it's been fantastic. And you just pick up where you left off. You have great conversations about their life and their kids and what they remember from swimming. And it really surprised me how engaging those live reunions were.
Yeah, and in the classroom, in terms of the classroom settings and on the live streaming, this idea of informal knowledge transfer, I think, just is so even more impactful.
It really is. And I've also, one of the other things that I did that's much easier in a live environment, streaming digital environment, is I've had a couple guest speakers come in, and
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so that's really worked. Like people that couldn't make it any other, people in
Yeah,
California. I've had people in Canada, all over, who can come in and talk to my students and kind of describe to them what things are like, and in the field and what they're doing and how they're coping. So it really
yeah,
opens up the classroom. It breaks down the fourth wall of the
yep.
classroom and makes it open.
Right, people who you could never have had in the class before, you can have from anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, we
Exactly.
do a show here on lacrosse. It's really an
Mm-hmm.
educational, entertaining show to learn all about lacrosse, but also learn valuable life skills. Sometimes the hosts have on these like way famous celebrity lacrosse players, and the kids get to come on and they get to ask their celebrity cross player questions and have them answered in real time and have a conversation with the celebrity. You could never do that before.
Yeah, it's great. It's
It's amazing.
wonderful. It's such a great tool. Yeah.
So, um, I was going to go into my next question here. This is not going to be forever. Eventually, we're going to have a vaccine. Eventually, we're all going to be able to come out of our houses again. We won't have to socially distance. How much of this, Carl, is temporary? How much is permanent? And which things do you see going away? And what stuff do you see staying,
Yeah. So great
if that's the
question.
case?
So what we just talked about, I think, is not going to go away. Bringing in celebrities or well-known people in the field to talk to students, that's now opened this up. It's been there before, but people like, like the 24%, right? And now it's 100%. So I think that's going to stay. People are going to use live stream for that. I also think one of the things that we're discovering is that um, there's a lot of value to working from home. And you know what? Stuff gets done working from home, having these meetings from home. So I think that there's going to be more of a blend of live physical events and live online events. And I think organizations that successfully integrate the two are going to be the most successful. The future is always and it's not an or, right? A long time ago, it was going to be paperless, right? But I can write a letter right now digitally or with paper. Paper's not going away. So it has a different role than it used to, but it's not going away. So I think physical proximity is going to do that. So what I think is this blended or hyperflex or whatever you want to call it, I can definitely see students maybe once the beginning of the semester, coming in the semester, taking live discussions, live exercises, and then doing 2 or 3 weeks live streaming, and then bringing students back to the class, and then doing an in-class exercise where students are. So I think it's going to definitely be a mix and a blend. I think that the idea of being able to do, like, again, the swim team reunion we had. So like reunions, not everybody can come, but everybody can come digitally, bringing people in digitally. I like it because I can also say to the students, hey, I'm traveling at a conference and I'm still going to have class. And now we're just going to do it online, and that should be fine with you. So, because you're used to it. So I think it's going to give us a different level of comfort with having online experiences and online learning. And I also hope what it does is it lifts there's a lot of skills in delivering online learning and live streaming that some people didn't have before. And I'm hoping that this serves as kind of a wake-up call. And everybody says, hey, I need to have these skills. I need to do these skills. I need to think about upping my game to present. Because I always say, if you're a boring, dull, in-person presenter, online learning and live streaming is going to magnifying that 10 times.
Oh yeah,
So,
so much.
yeah, easily. So if you are unenergetic in the classroom, it'll be horrible online. So hopefully once you learn that I have to be a little bit more energetic online, that'll transfer back into the classroom. So those types of lessons learned, I think, will stay with us and help us elevate learning and development and classroom instruction tenfold.
We actually have a comment from Patrick Avioli, which is a very good comment. Thank you, Patrick, for that comment. Patrick is actually a professor at Long Island University, and he says blending will cut down on the need for campus space and services. I know it's a little dicey question. What do you think about that?
I think Patrick's absolutely correct. I mean, I think of all the things that happen on campus, and I think of all the services and all those kind of things. And then I think of what can be done online. The other thing I think, so the problem is most of us are thinking of the university as the way it is now. And in the future, it'll just be an online version of it. But I don't think that's the case. I think universities have an opportunity. So I look at, think about lifelong learning. Why does a university have to be confined to 4 years? Doesn't. But physically and work-wise and everything, if it was 8 years, then I wouldn't enter the workforce until, whatever, I wouldn't be able to work. But what if you can enroll in a university or a series of universities for 10, 20 years and you get set instruction about certain things, certain ideas, certain concepts. So you say, hey, I'm really passionate about history. My job might be in order entry, but I want to invest in this. I want to really know this. Well, why not take 1 or 2 live sessions a week and get up to speed in that? Or the regulations for tax law change all the time. Why don't I invest in a 10-year tax law program? And so I'm always on the cutting edge of what's going on. If I am thinking about those kind of things. So let's change the university. Let's not do the same thing that we've been doing. So we don't need as many services as we do. And in fact, for the university perspective, I think it would give them more streams of revenue than the limited revenue streams they have right now.
Especially because you can only fit so many kids in a classroom. But when you live stream, you could have kids from all over the world participating in a class.
Yes.
Which begs the question about applications like Zoom. They're good, but they're only a start, and they get very limited after a little bit of time. Have you noticed that?
They really do. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The idea behind, so we had to do what we had to do because it was an emergency in the spring, and people, I think, reacted valiantly. I mean, imagine taking a whole industry and putting it online, in a matter of weeks. And that's basically what happened with K through 12, college, everything, with no train. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. But a Band-Aid only will cover your wound for so long, and then you eventually have to get stitches. And I think we are in the fall where we need to get the stitches. We need to up the game of what we're doing. And when you think about if every college, let's say in the United States or world, uses Zoom, then how are you different than every other college? And if you are not different, then why are people going to go to your college or university instead of another college or university? And expand that to high school, right? So if we don't start thinking differently now about the situation we're in right now, then our college is going to be a poor facsimile of a physical space and existence that we just have to put online with, a quick webinar software. If we really want to think about upping our game and involving students, because we know from some of the research out there says that why students drop out of college is because they feel like they're anonymous and just a number and nobody's really cares about them. And if you project like, okay, we're just going to dump out content. We're not going to do these extra things for you. We're not going to meet with you as a student. We're not going to have interaction. We're going to do everything, self-paced. Then it's really easy to feel like nobody cares. So things like live streaming and those kind of opportunities are things that really can up the game of the
Right.
faculty member and
Sure.
the university, and make them stick out.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a couple of applications. One is, let's say we're teaching a shop, some type of a shop class. Maybe I'm enrolled in a trade school like plumbing or auto mechanics. Well, you might need a multi-camera shoot to shoot a how-to segment, a live how-to segment where the students can actually watch what's going on and ask questions and maybe even have something simulated at home or online. You need more than one camera. You can't do that in these applications like Zoom. You can't have animation programs that have pointers in real time that look at a specific portion of a part or something of that sort. You just can't do it.
Yeah. No, you can't. It's impossible. It's
Now,
much more impactful too to be able to see it from those different angles, right?
right,
We've all looked at YouTube videos, and the good ones versus the bad ones, and the ones that show multiple angles that are shot well, and you always always have a question. Boy, I would really like to know. My switch doesn't quite have that wire. So what am I supposed to do? But I always imagine that live streamed where I could ask the guy,
right,
hey, I have this extra wire. What am I supposed to do? Oh, let me show you. I mean, yeah, really helpful.
right. And I want to talk about gaming and gamification for a second, but I'm just going to interrupt this program just for a second. So our technical director, Ryan Brenneman, he's our chief technical director at the Streamcast Network. Ryan, if you feel like coming in because you have a question or comment, because I know you can add a lot of value to this conversation, have at it. It's okay. But Karl, I do want to talk about gaming and gamification and live streaming. And as a matter of fact,
Okay.
Ryan could probably add to this because we actually produced a live streaming game where we had like a whole Family Feud game. But
Okay.
first, please tell the audience in 60 seconds or less what is gaming and gamification and the differences between the two, so that way it can set the stage for how it applies to live streaming and online learning.
Right. So game and gamification are often mixed up, but gamification is the use of elements, pieces, and parts of games, but not an entire game itself. A game is something played start to finish. So gamification are things like adding points or creating a leaderboard as part of in my case, often an educational situation. Where a game would be, you would have a start to the game, you would have official rules to the game, play the game, have all those experiences, but they would all work together. Whereas gamification uses the elements of games to help motivate people, to help engage people, to help challenge people. So those are kind of the differences. You can think of almost as a continuum. So gamification starts with a little reward point or a leaderboard, and you add certain things. And if you add enough things, then that actually becomes a full-fledged game. Most people don't have time for games because they're too busy or things are too hectic, or they're not. A lot of games work, especially board games, work side by side. But gamification, it grew up kind of digitally, so a digital environment works really well for gamification.
So we actually created a game. It was really more Ryan created a game. He made an entire interactive Family Feud type game, and that game board was actually it moved, it changed like you were watching on TV. To
Oh,
the
that's
left of the
awesome.
board were three contestants, Brady Bunch style, and to the
Uh-huh.
right of the game board were three more contestants, Brady Bunch style, and up top was the host. And that host treated the whole live stream as if everybody was on set on location.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
It,
You
it
should
was
you
so
should work
cool.
that clip in. I'd love to see that, some images of that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that Ryan could put some together for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm trying to think if there's anything else before we let you go because I know we're running late and I know you have to go. Um, I'm sure that everybody is apprehensive about this online learning and then live streaming. But I think they're finding out that there's a whole new world out there, new opportunities.
Yeah.
Tell me
I,
about
I
some of the opportunities you see for the kids.
yeah, to me, I think the opportunities are one with live streaming. Eventually, you'll be able to learn from the best in the world. The best in the world will be able to live stream their courses, their concepts, their ideas. But not only that, you'll be able to learn from peers around the world, which I think is very exciting when we think about, um, you look at some folks who have never left the country, let alone their county, let alone their township, because it's expensive and they don't have the means. But now you can visit with people all over. And it's one thing to read something on the internet. It's another thing to connect, to see the person, to exchange smiles in a live environment. So I think that's going to be a really interesting. And I think what the live streaming does and the whole situation does is allow us or force us, which I think in a good way, to rethink what does a learning experience look like? Why does it have to be time bound? Why does it have to be location bound? Why does it even have to be subject bound, right? Can we interleave different subjects to get to the outcome? Can it be tailored to what I'm interested in? Can I, as I'm learning history, can you bring in a historian? Can you, I like to study the history of games to figure out how to design a game. And why not bring, and so one of the games called Kriegspell, which is a war game developed kind of in the 1700s. And one of the books about it spent a lot of time on cartography, because cartography actually made sophisticated wargaming possible, because now the maps were accurate. Well, wouldn't it be great if I'm talking about game development to bring in a cartographer to show the interrelationship between these different subjects? And I think that's what the new normal, if you will, allow us to be. But I don't want to go. I think this is an opportunity to go forward and not backwards, and not say, okay, it's all done, I can let my breath out, let's go back to what we were doing before. No, let's take the best of what we had before, because there's a lot of advantages in the classroom, and let's take the best of live streaming, let's take the best of self-paced and put them all together. And students now who have this experience that their older siblings might not have had can really leverage this for the new way forward.
Right. And you and I have discussed in the past that blended learning is such a fantastic approach to learning. And now with live streaming and what's happened with the pandemic, it's forced us into blended learning.
Yes, absolutely. It has. And
So
in some
embrace
ways
it.
that's bad, but in some ways it's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carl, it's always great to have you on.
Always a
Um,
pleasure, Clint.
I'd love to have you on more often. If you come on like once a month or once every other month, just to like give us like, okay, what's going on now? Because I have a feeling whatever you said today, some of it's not going to be relevant in a month or two from now as we keep learning more and more.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'd love to. Yeah. Can't wait to come back.
That'd be great. Well,
Awesome.
Carl, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks,
And
Clint.
we'll look forward to seeing you again. And
Take care.
in 2 weeks from now, we are going to have on Jane Hansen. Jane is a very well-known news journalist. She was on WNBC TV for about 30 years. I think she was also on the network. And she's been producing some of her own shows now because she can. So we're going to have on Jane in a couple weeks. And until then, stay safe and stay whatever. See ya.